You alright there guys, Kieran here with another episode of Kieran's Movie Space, the podcast where I talk about the latest movies and TV shows. In this episode, I'm going to be travelling through the Marvel Multiverse and reviewing the latest Spider-Man film, which also happens to be the first animated Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you'll probably know by now that I'm a massive comic book nerd. I love the Marvel films, all that kind of stuff, and Spider-Man is probably my favourite superhero of all time. So with that in mind, you won't really be surprised to hear that I was insanely excited, not only for an animated Spider-Man movie, but for an animated Spider-Man movie that would also explore the multiverse and introduce multiple versions of Spider-Man from different universes, including Miles Morales, who's a character that I've always wanted to see up on the big screen. I don't really want to spoil the plot of Into the Spider-Verse just because there's so much stuff going on in this film, but I will say that this really is a Miles Morales origin story. The film really focuses on him figuring out his powers while at the same time he's meeting all of these different versions of Spider-Man from multiple universes, including a Spider-Man we're familiar with, Peter Parker, who kind of mentors Miles and shows him the ropes a little bit. But I'll stop there because, like I said, I really don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just move on to my review, and I just want to start by saying that I really loved this movie. I went into this with pretty high expectations, and those expectations were just blown away within like the first half an hour. I've seen the film twice now, and honestly, I think it might be up there with Homecoming as my favourite Spider-Man movie. And that's not just something I'm saying because of all the stored up hype either. I think in terms of storytelling and character building, this genuinely is a really great, really smart Spider-Man story. It's completely unique as well. We've had 6 Spider-Man films before this one, but somehow it never felt like we were going somewhere we'd been before. It felt completely new and completely fresh, and I think that's mainly because of the way that they approach these characters, because they do it in a really different way. Miles is easily the best thing about this entire movie. The way they introduce him and tell his origin story is really cool, and by the end of the film you really do care about Miles, and you can relate to him on multiple levels as well, which isn't really something you can do with many other heroes. What I really liked about Miles in this film as well was that he had a really tough time after getting his superpowers. It's not like he was bitten by a spider and then saved the world the next day. He really struggles to get to where he needs to be, and it was fun to really spend time with Miles while he's figuring out how to use these incredible powers. The version of Peter Parker that we see in this movie was definitely a highlight as well, and Jake Johnson deserves a lot of credit for bringing that character to life. This isn't the Peter Parker that we've seen in the countless other movies. He's kind of fallen out of love with being Spider-Man, his life's a bit of a mess, and while the film does mainly focus on Miles and his origin, Peter has his own personal journey going on, and his arc in this film was really compelling and fun to watch. Also, the moment I realised that I relate more to the chubby, lazy version of Spider-Man than the youthful and heroic one was really kind of depressing, but I think I'm alright with it. There are some other really great characters in this film, including Spider-Gwen, who's awesome, but I'm not going to talk about them because I want to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, so I'll just move on and talk about the animation style, and I think this might be one of the most creative and beautiful animated movies ever made. Watching the film, you can tell that they've put a lot of work and a lot of hours into making Into the Spider-Verse feel and look like it was torn straight out of a comic book. The characters look like comic book characters, and then like speech bubbles and stuff pop up at certain moments, and it all just gives the film this really unique kind of style. Different characters are animated in different ways to represent the various universes, which was really smart, and it looks really insanely cool. And then there's even a few moments in the film, like when Miles is swinging or jumping from buildings, where it looks like it's live action. It really is just a beautiful film to look at, and all of those visuals just help to tell this really fun and really unique story. And speaking of story, the way that the different elements and the different tones are balanced is incredible. I don't know how they did it. This movie has loads of really funny moments, a few quite silly moments, and then at the same time you've got this really serious and kind of emotional narrative running through, and it never feels like the different tones are being mashed together. The humour works naturally with the drama, and the result is this really funny and this really heartfelt and emotional Spider-Man Spider-Man movie. Moving on to the stuff I didn't enjoy about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I think my only issue with the film was the villain, Kingpin. The character was really underutilized here. They gave him a bit of a backstory, but it wasn't really enough to make us care about him as the villain. I get that there were already so many characters and developing the villain would have required a longer runtime, but I think if they could have just explored Kingpin a little bit more, if we could have just had one or two more scenes, he could have been a really great villain for this film. But I think that's my only issue with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Overall, this is an absolutely thrilling, hilarious, and surprisingly emotional journey with an all-new web-slinger. Thanks to some of the best animation I've ever seen and some stellar storytelling, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse manages to compete with the live-action Spidey movies, and like I said, I think this is up there as my favourite Spider-Man movie so far. There have been so many sequels recently, and I don't remember the last time I walked out of an original movie like this and said I wanted a sequel, but I really can't wait to see more of these characters and more of these animated Spider-Man stories. Have you seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? Let me know what you thought in the comments section below. Please like and share this review on all social medias and check out some of my other episodes. For now though, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.